Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. In this video, you're checking out an updated Stamina Warden PVE build for the Elder Scrolls Online. And not only that, this is an easy DPS bow build. Yes, that's right, a bow-only DPS setup with no trials gear required and an easy rotation. As always, we'll be covering the stats, the gear set options, skills, champion points. We'll cover the rotation and a whole lot more, and all of that is coming up next. All right, everybody, here we are back on the Stamina Warden, this time checking out our easy bow build. No trials gear necessary, easy rotation. Of course, we'll talk about how you can extend the build, maybe with some trial sets for more damage, but we'll just be going over the basic setup to start with. So let's go ahead and buff with just our potion, and then check out the stats on the build. Starting at about 10,000 max magicka, 18,000 max health, 33,000 max stamina, coming in at about 1,200 stamina recovery. Weapon damage, 3,200, though that does go up with our back bar weapon enchant. 55% critical currently. That will go up quite a bit more with our set when that's fully procced as well. Now, of course, you do want all 64 points into stamina, this being a Stam Warden setup. Running the Ozzymandos, I still think Shadow is going to be very strong for any type of DPS setup that you want to run. We do have to adjust things like our trait, because crit is a little bit lower in the Markarth DLC. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. In terms of food, if you have a good group, if you have sustain and synergies, then definitely run the blue food if you can. Max health, max stamina. If not, if you're having a little trouble sustaining, then we can talk about maybe adding a drink instead, something like Dubious or Artaeum. Just for a little bit extra stam recovery, that will be nice as well. Minor Berserk, we'll talk about all that stuff in a few more minutes. Now, in terms of the potion, you have a couple options. If you want to focus purely on damage and not worry so much about buffs, then I do recommend the weapon power potions. You get your weapon damage increase and your weapon critical increase. Now, those can be expensive, and the Warden actually has both buffs as part of our class skill lines. So if you want to save some money, though you're going to have to run more buffs, you can actually use just the basic stamina potions as well. And that'll be just as effective as long as you're maintaining your buffs. In terms of the race, if you want to maximize your damage, again, looking for as much DPS as possible, then Orc is going to be very strong this patch still. You have the max stamina, obviously. The extra health is going to be pretty good for dungeon situations, just to keep your health a little bit higher. It's pretty nice. And then, of course, Swift Warrior gives us the bonus weapon damage. You get the same weapon damage from being a Dark Elf, so that'll be comparable. Khajiit will be pretty good as well, thanks to the extra crit damage. So those are probably my top three choices in terms of race. Now, if you feel like Sustain is going to be an issue, you can always go for Redguard, Wood Elf. Those are more of the Sustain-focused races in ESO, and those are good options as well. All right, so that covers all the basics. Let's talk about the gear sets next. Starting with our first 5-piece set, we're going to be running Morag Tong on this build, and this is quite a nice set for a bow build. The bonuses here give you weapon damage, max stamina, weapon damage again, and then for the 5-piece, when you deal direct damage, you cause the enemy to take 10% more damage from poison and disease attacks for 5 seconds. Now, this is especially good on Stamina Warden because one of our main abilities, Subterranean Assault, that is poison damage. And then we're going to be running Lethal Arrow as well from the bow skill line. That is poison damage. You got Poison Injection. We're running double dot poisons. So tons of poison and disease damage on the Stamina Warden. This also works really well if you're running with other stamina builds. Let's say you have like a Stamina Nightblade or a Stamina Dragon Knight in your group that you run with regularly. This is going to buff all of their damage as well because it's actually a debuff on the boss. So you won't see higher tooltips on your own character necessarily, but what you will see is the boss taking more damage from those poison and disease attacks. So I do like this. I also like the fact that this can be bought in guild traders, or you can just farm this yourself. If you have the alliance points, you can buy this from the Cyrodiil merchants. Now, we are running the bow on the front bar. This is going to be a double bow setup. Now, the ideal trait for this is going to be precise. And the reason for that is a couple reasons, actually, with Markarth. Number one, they're increasing the value of a lot of penetration debuffs, which means that sharpened really isn't probably necessary on any builds anymore. And then also they've decreased some of the crit chance values that we get from things like champion points. So even though precise took a slight nerf, I think it was like 8.6% in the last patch in Markarth, I think you're going to want still a precise weapon on your front bar. just to keep your crit as high as possible. So we're going with a precise bow again, and then double damage poisons. Just got the crown poisons on right now. But something that does poison damage obviously is going to be beneficial from Morag Tong as well. Then we're going to run that set with 3 pieces on the jewelry. So Morag Tong necklace and 2 rings. We've got weapon damage enchants on all 3 pieces. And then Bloodthirsty, if you have the trait change stones, Bloodthirsty, you will see a slight DPS increase by running that trait, so I would recommend that. Now for the second 5-piece set, I've kept Zogvin's Warband from the previous version of this build. I just love this set, how it simplifies your rotation, and it gives you a lot of good critical damage as well. You can see 2 crit chance bonuses. Physical penetration, actually, this lets you move your CP into other areas. It's great if you have less than 810 CP as well. And then for the 5-piece, when you deal critical damage, you gain stacks of precision. Those increase your weapon critical as well. And then at max stacks, which is really quick, you get minor force. So with this, we do not need to run barb trap or lightweight trap. You don't need to run channeled acceleration. You'll get that bonus for free. And that bonus is very strong in group content. You want to make sure any DPS character has access to minor force, so this is just an extremely easy way to maintain that buff without really having to do anything. And again, it simplifies the rotation, which is what I'm all about on this setup. So Zogvin's is a medium armor set. It's from the Frostvault dungeon, so this will take a little bit of farming. But to help with that, I've just put this on the body. I think the body pieces are probably going to be the easiest to get on this, so you don't have to worry about farming weapons or jewelry. You don't even have to go all the way to the end of the dungeon if you don't want to. So Zogvin's chest, waist, hands, legs, and feet. All divines if you can get it with max stamina enchants. That's going to help your build do as much damage as possible. And I kept the old monster set on here as well. I just feel this is a nice setup for any type of bow build in general. You get the stamina recovery, and then you get a good bit of damage on the proc. That does physical damage and shock damage, and that can go off every 8 seconds. So it's a pretty good increase overall to your damage, especially since you're at range. It's going to be one of the easiest options to use. If you don't have that, then what I would recommend is just maybe 2 mixed pieces, either something with weapon damage or weapon critical. Those would be my top 2 picks there. And of course, the back bar bow, we want to run Maelstrom on this setup just because we are running Arrow Barrage on the back bar with a weapon damage enchant. And remember, you can get this now on normal Maelstrom Arena. You don't have to farm Veteran anymore, so it's going to be a lot easier if you don't have this weapon and you have a stamina build. You should definitely pick one up. Infuse is going to be your best trait, again, because you want the weapon damage glyph to be as strong as possible, and you want that 5-second cooldown, so you have basically 100% uptime on that glyph. So infused is very important. If you don't get infused to drop, then make sure you have the trait change gems to change that over. But that's basically the setup. So again, we got Morag Tong weapons and jewelry. Going to run Zogvin's on the body with the Stormfist monster set and backbar Maelstrom bow. Now, what other sets could you use? Previously, I did Zogvin's and New Moon Acolyte. That will be okay. New Moon Acolyte did get nerfed down to 400 weapon and spell damage, so it's not quite as good as it has been in the past, and Zogvin gives you the same physical penetration bonus, actually. But that's definitely an option if you want to run that crafted set. New Moon Acolyte is good for that. Other options, for example, would be Swamp Raider. I run this on my Stamina Nightblade bow build. Swamp Raider gives you a similar buff to your poison and disease damage, though this just affects you. It doesn't do any group buffs, but that can be nice for damage as well, Swamp Raider. And then if you want to add a trial set to this build, substituting one of these sets with Arms of Reliquin, that'll increase your overall DPS by quite a bit. So that's what I would add if you're able to add trials gear. But again, just the basic setup doesn't require trials sets at all, and the damage is still very, very strong. So let's talk about skills next. Let's jump over to those. For our front bar bow, the Morag Tong bow, we're going to start with our animal companions, and that's going to be Growing Swarm. So this is a strong damage over time effect. It does bleed damage. It also does the minor vulnerability debuff, and it damages nearby enemies. So this is quite strong. Unfortunately, it's not going to be buffed by Morag Tong, but I think it's still worth running, and especially because we get some passive damage from running animal companion abilities anyways. I'm going to run that for my main dot on the front bar. And then Subterranean Assault, that's going to be next. That's our second ability here. Subterranean Assault is the stamina morph, and this is changing. So I want to explain this because it also changes the rotation just a little bit. It actually makes the rotation a bit easier. So You can see this does poison damage every 3 seconds, so it has a 3-second timer. But then what's new about this is it no longer does the major fracture debuff. Instead, it's going to recast itself automatically for a second attack. So you can see there, they burrow again for 3 seconds and then resurface again, deals the same amount of poison damage. So let me show you what that looks like. So you just have to cast it once. Here's my 3-second timer on the initial hit, and then you can see it's automatically casting again. There's the second hit. So overall, I was a little skeptical about the change when I first saw this on the PTS. I think it's good for bow builds because it really makes the rotation a lot simpler. So I think for this build specifically, it's going to be nice. For soloing, you may have some issues. But again, this is not for soloing. This is for a group situation where I'd assume you have a tank that's running, major breach to debuff the enemy anyways. So you're really not missing anything in terms of a DPS setup. You're just getting an easier rotation, so it's not bad. Now, next up, Lethal Arrow is, of course, from the bow skill line. This is our main spammable DPS skill. This does poison damage as well, so this is getting buffed by Morag Tong. The Minor Defile doesn't matter for PvE. So this is just a very strong ability. Keep in mind, this is a channel, so you will need about a 1-second cast time. And we'll talk about this more in the rotation, but it is kind of a long channel, but it fits in well, I think, with Sub-Assault, so that is nice. And then here you really just have 2 passives. You can put anything you want on your front bar. I'm just running more Animal Companion skills for more passive damage. So we've got Cutting Dive. Again, not really going to use this. It's physical damage, so it's not getting buffed by Morag Tong, though you could use this to set a target off balance if nobody else is applying off balance in your group. And then Bird of Prey, most likely you'll be getting Minor Berserk from your healer. But if you're not, in the case of like pickup groups and stuff, then this is very good for the extra damage. Now notice that this has been nerfed in the Markarth DLC. It's no longer 8%, it's now 5%. So just keep that in mind. That's not a bug, that's actually intended. And then the ultimate on this build, it's going to be the Bear Pet. It's going to be Wild Guardian. This does physical damage as well. And the ultimate, only 75 ultimate to cast, and it does do execute damage. So it can hit very, very strong on this build. And of course, we do get extra passes for slotting Animal Companions, so that's a nice benefit as well. For the back bar, more bow skills like we talked about earlier. So running Poison Injection, that's our last ability from the bow skill line. This gives you good poison damage. So again, it's going to be buffed by Morag Tong. It does execute damage as well. Pretty cheap to cast. So you definitely want to keep this up in your rotation. And then to go along with that, we've got Arrow Barrage. That's the second ability here. Now you can choose either morph, but I've chosen Arrow Barrage just to keep the rotation really, really tight on this build because this is at exactly the same duration as Poison Injection. You can see 10 seconds on both. This does pretty decent damage, and like we talked about with the sets, this is going to proc your weapon damage enchant on the back bar, giving you tons of extra weapon damage. So you want to make sure this is up 100% of the time. Next up, we just have, again, 3 flex spots on the back. Now let's talk about that case where maybe you're just in a pickup group and you don't want to burn through weapon power potions. Then you definitely want to run Bullnetch. Bullnetch is from the Animal Companion skill line. Second to last ability here. This gives you stamina recovery. It's going to help your sustain quite a bit, and it gives you major brutality, so that 20% bonus weapon damage. You can use this instead of a potion. Now, if you're going to do that, what I would recommend in one of these slots is also run Green Lotus. Green Lotus is from the Green Balance skill line. This is a buff that actually heals you based on your light attacks, and it gives you major savagery, so that's the weapon critical bonus. So by having these 2 buffs, you can run basic stamina, trash potions, and you'll get the same damage basically for free. So that's what I would recommend there if you want to do that. And then last, you just have a free spot. Something you can do here would be like your armor buff, Ice Fortress. Ice Fortress is from Winter's Embrace. That's the first ability. There, I do recommend that morph because it gives you minor protection. So these are all basically, pickup group skills. If you have more of a dedicated group that you want to focus purely on DPS, then run those passives again, like we talked about on the front bar. You want to have, some Animal Companion abilities here instead, like Bird of Prey. Cutting Dive, those will increase your damage a little bit through Animal Companion passives. Then, of course, you have to double bar your Bear Pet, so you'll have that on the front and the back bar. So there you go. Those are the skills. Now let's talk about the rotation here. I've tried to make it as easy as possible. Now, one thing you want to work on is your range. The range on Stamina Warden is a little bit tricky because you have to be close enough for Sub-Assault to hit, but you want to be far enough where your bow is buffed by the long shot passive. So somewhere in this area is going to be ideal. That's kind of the range that you want. Now, where do you start? You're going to start on your back bar. If you have any buffs, make sure you bring those up. And then you want to use that timer on Sub-Assault to your advantage. So we're going to start on the front bar with a Sub-Assault. And then on the back bar, we can just cast Arrow Barrage, Poison Injection, Bar Swap to our Growing Swarm. And then your Sub-Assault should be ready to cast again. So here, let me show you one more time. So Sub-Assault, put on your back bar, dots, Bar Swap, do Growing Swarm, and then recast Sub-Assault. So those are the dots. After you cast Sub-Assault again, you'll have time for 3 lethal arrows in a row. So here's what that looks like. Sub-Assault, lethal arrow, 1, 2, 3. And then you'll just want to cast Sub-Assault and then go into your back bar dots. Now, obviously, I did show it, but it's important that you light attack between every ability. Light attacks account for a lot of overall DPS, so you'll want to keep that up. Now, when your ultimate is ready, you'll want to fire that off as well. And the way I do that is I really just, instead of doing my last lethal arrow, I'll do 2 lethal arrows, 1, 2, and then instead of my 3rd lethal arrow, I'll use the ultimate. And there we go. So a little bit faster. Again, making sure you light attack in between. You can see the rotation is really simple. All right, let's talk about what passives do you need on your Stamina Warden. In terms of your class passives, all of these are pretty strong, especially in Animal Companions. Bond with Nature, I would pick this up for the extra heal. Savage Beast, I would pick this up as well. Extra ultimate generation when you're casting your Sub-Assault is very good. Now, Flourish, you should be getting this passive no matter what. Because you have your Wild Guardian on both bars. So you're going to get increased stamina recovery on your front and back bar, which is very good. And then Advanced Species, I kept on talking about the extra damage that we get from Animal Companions. You want to stack your bars with as many of these skills as you can, because look at the passive damage. Right, 10% bonus damage. That's on all my skills. That's not just on, Animal Companion skills. That means my lethal arrow is also hitting for 10% more damage. So really good passive. Make sure you pick that one especially. Green Balance. These will be more useful if you're running Green Lotus. So Accelerated Growth, Nature's Gift, Emerald Moss. Those will more apply to that heal. So you can actually save some points here if you're not running that skill. But you definitely want Maturation. This gives you and your group miner toughness. So that increases their max health by 10%. For 20 seconds, and that's based on any heal. So if you want to be more of a group support build, then pick up Maturation, maybe run Echoing Vigor on the back bar as a group heal, and all of your group now has 10% more max health. It's really nice. Winter's Embrace. We're really not going to be using very many of these. You could probably save some points here if you want. Icy Aura is okay just for avoiding snares. But you can see like Frozen Armor, we're barely going to get any benefit from this. Glacial Presence, we're not running any Frost skills that would apply shield, but if you have a tank, maybe using a Frost Staff, then you'll actually get some bonus damage from this, which is not bad. And then Piercing Cold, we're not running any magic or frost damage abilities, so you could save 2 points there if you want. Now, yes, in terms of your weapon skills, you want all of your bow skills. These are extremely important. They reduce your cost. They give you more damage with longer range. So definitely get those. And then Medium Armor, all your passives are good here. You can save 2 points on Improved Sneak if you want, though. Fighters Guild, if you're running Beast Trap, so for example, if you don't have Zogven, you can run something else and run Beast Trap to get the Minor Force buff. Then I would recommend putting some points into Slayer because you'll get extra weapon damage. You can run Beast Trap on your back bar, for example. But no matter what, Banish the Wicked is always good. I always put 3 points here for the extra ultimate when killing undead, Daedra, and werewolves. That's very strong. Undaunted, if you have this to level 10, make sure you're putting points into Undaunted Command and Undaunted Metal. Salt and Support, not really needed. Definitely pick up your racial skills. and Alchemy Medicinal Use for the extra potion duration. Next up, let's talk about champion points. Just a very basic DPS setup. Here we go. In the green tree, 37 Warlord, 21 Sprinter, 100 into Mooncalf, 56 into Shadow Ward and Tumbling. Over in the blue tree, we got 71 Master Arms for those big lethal arrows and sub-assault, 61 into Thaumaturge for our dots, 56 Precise Strikes, 18 into Piercing. Remember, we're running Zogven, so we have additional penetration from that set, and you barely need any points into Piercing this patch, which is kind of nice. And then 64 into Mighty. In the red tree, 81 Ironclad, 56 into Hardy Elemental Defender, 40 into Thick Skinned, and 37 into Quick Recovery. Let's finish it off by talking about the outfit style. This is actually a new style you can pick up with the Markarth DLC. So this is called Ancestral Reach. So it's from the new zone of the Reach. I believe you can get it through the Antiquities system. So it's another one of those new updated styles. I really like it in light and medium armor. Most of these are light pieces. And then the only thing that's different is the helmet on this setup. And for that, I'm just running the Akaviri hat in light. All right, everybody, that's going to wrap up our easy Stamina Warden Bow DPS build for ESO. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you found this video helpful or if you just liked it, don't forget to crush that like button for me. It definitely helps out the channel. If you're brand new, don't forget to hit that subscribe button as well with your notifications turned on so you don't miss anything. I do have a website, hacktheminotaur.com, which has written versions of all my builds, including skills, champion points, gear options, rotations, and a whole lot more. Links to the website as well as my social media will be down in the description below if you want to check those out. As always, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you're doing well. Stay safe out there, and I will see you around in the next video.